Well, let's look at them. This takes us up to the October international break. So we're sort of looking at Manchester United's next 6 fixtures. Brighton away, Liverpool at home, Southampton, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, Aston Villa. It's not the easiest, is it? Roy?
Do you know what? I'm always a bit wary, honestly, if you're looking too far ahead. Honestly, I know it's a bit boring.
Because there isn't any element of form or momentum behind either of the sides.
Obviously, the one that jumps out, of course, the big game, of course, is Liverpool at home. We know how big that is. But Brighton away, again, they've got a new manager. We don't know how that's going to pan out, the style of play they're going to have. Listen, United, they've gone to Palace last season. They were dreadful down there. Spurs, Villa going strongly. So, again, I'd be just focused on the next game. Take that bit of confidence. Again, we go back to that word momentum. Even from one game, you can take that, but building it, you can't be as hit and miss as last season. Even tonight they weren't great, but they were competing and they won the game. And that we go back to it. Find a way to win, even if you're not at your very, very best.
I think what Erik Ten Hag needs, when you look at the fixtures, I agree with Roy, you're not quite sure where you'll be in the fixtures, how the opposition are doing also. But we know the target has got to be top 4. I think if Man United miss out on the Champions League positions again, it'll be difficult to probably see Erik Ten Hag here next season. So what they've got to be careful of, United, is that they don't sort of fall away at any stage away from that area. They don't have to always be in the top 4, but they need to be within touching distance, sort of 3 or 4 points maybe off it. If you start getting to a situation where you're 7 or 8 points off it and you get into sort of November, December, and the team aren't playing particularly well, that's when he might have a problem. But I don't think anyone here believes Manchester United are going to be in a title race. They know that they're building to try and get there, but they've got to make sure that they're in the Champions League next season.
But just to go back to your point about them probably going to be stop-start until maybe the November international break, what then do they need to get from those next 6 games up to October? What do you want to see from them that would indicate that progress has been made, even if it is stop-start?
I think what we were crying out for all last season was a pattern and a style of play to develop whereby you knew there was consistency. I don't think we're ever going to see a proper Manchester United team until we see some sort of level of consistency, shape that repeats itself week on week. You knew a Jurgen Klopp team, you know now an Arteta team, you know a Pep Guardiola team, you know an Ange Postecoglou team, even though he's only been there a season.
Do you think we'll ever know an Erik Ten Hag team? My point being, Gary, I think if you're at a club for we're going into his 3rd season now, that can't be a question. So are we sort of saying he is a type of manager who doesn't have a certain style? He just basically he plays what's on.
There is an element of that, and I think, to be fair, I don't have a problem with it, because I think we at United, when we played, wouldn't necessarily always play the same way every single week. We play counter-attack some week play possession. But what I would say is there has to be some level of consistency of what they're doing. So the same back 4, some principles of play that you think, okay, this is how they do play. They can't just keep changing the back 4 all the time, changing the midfield, changing the shape, injuries, all these things that repeated last season just unnerved and unsettled everybody. There's got to be something that they can sort of say, this is what we do, even if it is a little bit more sort of what would be ugly.
But that's where you need the players who can, particularly with your defence, can turn up and play 30, 40 games. They've had too many players, and of course, again, we go back to the injuries, but you need players who can turn up week in, week out and put in a good performance, and it can't be as hit and miss as last year. You can't turn up and be brilliant every week, but you want to look at the Man United side and understand the DNA and the personality of the team. Whereas last year you were turning up, and even tonight we weren't quite sure what we were going to get. And if Fulham were a little bit sharper going forward, they would have punished Man United. A better team would punish Man United. But on the other side of it, United created some good chances the first half, even where Fulham were defending low. Nice 1-2s in around the box, we saw the chances. And then when the game was getting stretched, United looked decent on the counter-attack. And that's fine. You find different ways to win a match. But they need to find players who can turn up week in, week out, and they've not had that for a couple of seasons now.